Hello everybody. In this video, my partner Enrique and I are going to talk about what are individual differences in second language acquisition, and we are going to mention some beliefs about them. This activity is carried out in order to know a little bit more about the process of second language acquisition and how each person is different from another in terms of learning. Enrique, what can you tell me about individual differences?
Good afternoon. Individual differences are those characteristics that distinguish each person from another, and they can be useful to define each person individually. For example, motivation, learning styles, learning beliefs, age, and gender.
Actually, intelligence is also an individual difference. In fact, there's a belief that claims in Spanish, entre más inteligente sea una persona, más fácil va a adquirir un segundo idioma. What can you tell me about that belief? Do you agree or disagree?
I'm not agree with that belief because uh, Fred Genesee was carried out a lot of IQ tests for some students in order to demonstrate that intelligence is relevant for the second language learning. But there's more than one kind of intelligence. For example, there is a kinesthetic intelligence, visual intelligence. Intelligence is related with the success in the school, but it doesn't mean that you will have success in language acquisition just because you're intelligent. Intelligence is important, but it's not the more important thing.
Well, I'm also disagree because there are some uh, studies that demonstrate that some people could be good or could have success in grammar, vocabulary, but it doesn't mean that they are going to be they are going to have success in speaking or in oral production. Do you know another individual difference?
Yeah, learning styles.
What is learning style? What does it refer?
Well, learning style is also related with intelligence, but it refers to the methodology of the way through students learn or study. There are three types: kinesthetic, auditory, and visual. Visual refers to all those students that can read to learn a language. Auditory are those students that learn the language through listening to music, to the radio, etc. And kinesthetic are those students that need to practice with someone else. And there is a belief that claims in Spanish, necesitas practicar con alguien más si quieres adquirir el idioma. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not agree with that belief because I think that it's not necessary to practice with another person to acquire the language because uh, there is it's easier to some people acquiring a language by listening to music or reading books. I don't know. I think that in this way they can acquire the language in a better way.
Okay, but I am partially agree with that because I know practicing is important because I know you can learn the language through listening to music or reading, but if you travel to the United States, You will need the experience that you got through practice it with someone else. But I think we need more research in that area.
Well, but I think that if you want to practice, you can practice, for example, when you are listening to music or when you are watching a movie, you can repeat what you hear, and in this way you can develop your skills. Or when you are reading a book, you can read aloud to develop your skills in the other language, in the language that you are acquiring. Anyway, well, let's talk about personality.
Okay, personality is also an important individual difference, and there is a belief that claims that las personas introvertidas o los estudiantes introvertidos tienen más éxito en el idioma. And Lily Wong tried to support this belief, but she failed. And because she made a lot of tests to students, and introvert students get better notes than extrovert ones. And there is another important aspect in personality, and is the inhibition. And for example, teenage students have more difficulties to speak because they have feelings of worry, anxiety, and stress. And younger students don't have these problems. That's why anxiety can interrupt the process of learning. And for that reason, some teachers work in anxiety. It turns anxiety into opportunities for students. For example, working on our presentations on discourse.
Well, anxiety is bad in these people because it affects when they are talking in an oral presentation, but it also depends of how many people there are in the presentation and the topic that they are going to talk about. But anxiety is not bad at all because a certain amount of tension in these people can carry out a positive, uh, can affect in a positive way in these people, because when they have this amount of tension, they tend to be more neutral when they are talking, and they tend to focus on the topic that they are talking.
That reason I disagree with that belief, because I don't think that being extrovert means to be good in a language. But I support the idea that teenage students are always thinking in this talk. For example, they are thinking, when they speak, they are thinking things like, what are the other people going to say? Or they think that they are saying things wrong. But I also support the idea that anxiety could interrupt the process of learning.
I also disagree because many researchers have demonstrated that not only extroverted students can learn the other language properly. Well, let's talk about motivation. Motivation is also an important individual difference. In fact, there's a belief that claim in Spanish, entre más motivado esté un alumno, más rápido va a adquirir el idioma. I agree with that belief because I think motivation is the most important thing that a person or a student have to acquire the language. But we also have to be in mind that not all of the students that have a good proficiency in the language are motivated. because maybe some people that are not motivated have a good proficiency in the language because where they live, they have to speak the language. They need to speak the language to communicate with the rest of the people. And um, a student that a student that is really motivated, maybe they have not a good proficiency in the language because where they live or where they are, uh, they don't have how to practice the language.
Okay, I am also agree with that. But well, motivation is for many researchers the most important the individual difference by far, and there are the two types of of motivation. The students who needs to talk the language and the students that wants to learn the language that has good attitudes towards the language. But for me, but both are motivated. Uh, Students who needs to talk the language are motivated because they want to improve their skills, and the students who has have good attitudes, well, they want to learn. That's why the motivation plays an important role in the process of learning the language.
The role of the teacher is also very important on learning of the students because they have to use or implement many strategies according to the learning of each student because they have to enjoy the classes and also it has to be interesting to the learning of them. And it also depends, the classes have to be interesting according to the age and culture of each student.
Another individual difference is learning belief. Let's talk about it. Learning belief refers that every student, particularly other students, have a strong belief in how instructions should be delivered. And these beliefs are based on previous learning experience and the assumption of what kind of instruction is the best way to learn. And this could make a mismatch in in their point of view of teachers and students.
Well, actually, learners don't worry about grammar as much as other languages that are more difficult, and because they had already seen grammar for ages, and they start to focus on communication.
Age is an individual difference as well. And there is a belief that claims that los niños aprenden inglés más rápido que los adultos. But I don't think so because there are proof that show that other students learn faster than children. And as in first language, there is a critical period in second language learning. And it means that there is a specific period of time in which students can learn the second language easily. Once the once that period of time ends, it's difficult or harder to learn the second language.
Well, but all learners acquire the language in a better way by in the first time, in a period of time. After that period of time, children can pass the level of all learners because uh, children don't worry about how they use the language in their environment. And all learners, uh, they worry about how to express their ideas, and it is how they cannot um, practice their language.
So children surpass all students.
Yes. Well, this is how we can distinguish the individual difference of each person. We mentioned some beliefs that can be true or false, and we will give our opinion about that belief. As we mentioned, there are many individual differences that have more influence in the process of language than the others. Well, that's it for us. Thank you for watching our video.